Hello and welcome to Moonshot, a show by Sequoia India and Southeast Asia that profiles innovative startups and inspiring founders who are dreaming big, making an impact, and driving change across the region. I'm your host, Dewi Fabri, and throughout this podcast, we'll be introducing you to founders and thought leaders who are helping shape the region's startup ecosystem. We hope this podcast will give you fresh ideas on how to start and scale an enduring company. The story of how Girish Mathrubootham launched Freshworks after his television set was damaged during a move from the US to Chennai is now part of India's startup folklore. After 6 months and 28 email threads with his insurance provider, he realized how broken the customer service process was and launched a product called Freshdesk. Since then, Freshworks has added a ton of other software products to its offerings and amassed customers all over the world. Freshworks, which just listed on the Nasdaq Stock Exchange, is now something of a poster child for Indian SaaS startups that want to build global businesses. On this episode of Moonshot, Girish chats with Mohit Bhatnagar, managing director at Sequoia India, about the early design choices that made Freshworks so successful. The conversation took place during an AMA at Surge, our rapid scale-up program for early-stage startups.
Hey Girish, welcome. Good to see you again. Thanks for joining us once again to talk to young founders. Girish, I want to start by talking about this notion of India as a product nation, which is very close to your heart. Now, we have a lot of engineers who know how to build products. But as you look back and reflect, what are some of the key learnings from the early days at Freshworks, which you think young founders should keep in mind to make sure that their products really meet customer needs? That to make sure that they actually have the pulse of what the customer is looking for?
If I were to tell you, how would, what are some of the things that I really look for from a product management standpoint in terms of product market fit? I think we have something called as I2P, idea to product, right? So I think a lot of time needs to be spent on the problem. So framing the customer problem is the most important step. So first thing is you have to really understand the customer problem in the customer language. A lot of times when I see startups, we get excited by technology, right? Okay, you have cookie tracking, or you want to do user behavior tracking on the website or inside the app, or you have WebRTC, you want to immediately build a video or a session browsing or co-browsing, or you want to build audio. So getting excited by technology into one area of adoption is not really the way to get to product market fit. Technology is important, but spending enough time on the customer problem, framing the customer problem, studying how they are solving the problem today. Okay, if we don't have a solution, what other alternatives could they potentially use? Are there other tools, or are there Excel and things like that? So I think spending a lot of time on the problem, it all starts with framing the customer problem really, really well, and spending enough time on the problem, because solution all of us can build.
Girish, but before we go forward, you are not just a successful founder, but you're also a very successful investor, being a prolific angel investor in India. Do you think there's a very big difference between the founder mindset and an investor mindset?
See, I can understand the investor mindset and the entrepreneur mindset. So I'll tell you, Mohit, as an investor, you want to see really ambitious founders who want to go and conquer the world. But I can tell you, as an entrepreneur, we start with a small idea where we want to get a wedge into the door. We want to maybe enter into the pre-sales function or enter into sales function. So most of the time, entrepreneurs are not thinking about how can I expand and build an empire, right? So this is where, see, it's not like one person is right or wrong, right? So sometimes what happens is investors end up backing crazy founders who just keep dreaming big but not executing. And sometimes good founders get stuck at 5 million, 10 million. And India has seen a fair share of those where they're not able to expand their vision. So I think I talk about dreaming in increments, right? So basically, okay, we all have to understand that founders will start with something, but do they have a path to expand? So the entrepreneur has to focus on solving something small really, really well because that's the wedge through which you grow. And the founders should not get stuck into this quarter or this year, right? You, as a product founder, you have to always be thinking, how is growth going to come in 2023 and 2025? But product market fit is, you have to first get one growth engine going, but then you find people who can take care of this year's growth while you're planning the future. So I think it's a balance.
Love it, Girish. Love it. Dreaming in increments. You've always said this. Once you get to 10 million ARR, only then can you see the path to 100. And from there on, only then do you see a path to 1 billion. Makes sense. But let's go back to product for a minute. I want to talk about this whole aspect of a dedicated single product strategy versus a multiple product strategy. I know from the very start, even though you launched Freshdesk, you soon followed it up with Freshservice. And then soon you had 7 or 8 other products. What's your recommendation and what's your learnings as you move from a single product strategy to a multiple product strategy? And how can young founders learn from that?
See, our initial GTM go-to-market was all about inbound motion. Like go online, search-driven lead gen, bring people to the website, let them sign up for a trial, let them play around and go and close with a credit card on file, right? So that is what we call as the inbound engine. Now, when we were in this inbound engine, we had Freshdesk launched. So what we found out was, one out of every 4 Freshdesk customers were using Freshdesk for internal employee support as an IT help desk, because the keyword that they were searching for was help desk software. So, and they were coming for internal IT help desk, they were using it. And rather than taking the same product and putting a marketing phase to say, okay, here is Freshdesk for IT, we actually custom built an IT product because we knew that the market is big. Also, what happened was we had chat, like synchronous chat. We had social media, and we were seeing that the market technology had come in terms of asynchronous chat was what everybody wanted. Like if you know, earlier you had live chat, now it is all about asynchronous chat like WhatsApp, but businesses wanted it. And then we also saw the emergence of cloud telephony, like people wanted to do customer support from anywhere rather than being chained to a contact center desk. So we actually built Freshchat and Freshcaller as separate products. Again, the go-to-market was, hey, if somebody is searching for phone, somebody is searching for cloud telephony or chat, let's go and sell them Freshchat. Let's sell them Freshcaller. And then the number one integration was sales CRM. So we said, okay, Salesforce is like really, really big and not really suited for this high velocity motion that we wanted. So let's build our own CRM. So we built Freshsales and so on and so forth, right? But in 2015, 2016, what we started was, we started an outbound motion, right? We started hiring sales teams in US, UK, Europe, and we were going outbound to customers also. Today, that is approximately half of our business or slightly more. So what you have to understand is when you're going outbound, it's a very different dynamic. Like you have to suddenly convince the customer, the buyer, hey, why change? Why now? And why Freshworks? See, somebody's searching for help desk software. They're coming to my website. They're signing up for a trial. I don't have to tell them why change, why now. They've already told me that they want to change. So I just have to sell to them why Freshworks. Now here, if I'm going outbound and let's say somebody's using Zendesk or Salesforce or ServiceNow, I have to convince them why change, why now, and then only why Freshworks comes into play. So for that, I need strategic positioning differentiation, and that comes with the combination. So that's why we went back into bundling. So omni-channel customer support. We saw that many customers were struggling with 8 different support tools. Like they had a different email help desk, they had a different chat system, different telephony, different bot system, and different social media listening. So we said, hey, your customer experience is broken. Come to Freshworks. We will give you an omni-channel, seamless customer service solution. That is the Freshdesk omni-channel suite.
So that makes sense, Girish. So what you're basically saying is in the early days, when you had an inside sales motion at Freshworks, it was more important for the product to focus on making it easy for customers who knew what they were looking for to buy from you. And then as you scaled the company and you created a new outbound sales motion, it became more important to actually have differentiating features in the product so that customers could understand why they should choose Freshworks versus an incumbent. That's pretty interesting. So Girish, I guess there are 2 types of companies. One where they're trying to create a new category where there aren't existing competition. And then in your case at Freshworks, where you went after customer service, where there were a number of existing solutions. Customer service was still broken, but you had to really rethink of how Freshworks products were differentiated from existing products in the market. How did you go about that differentiation?
See, there were 600 help desks when we started Freshdesk. Okay, so we were not the first mover by any chance. It was very hard to differentiate in the early days. As a founder, I'm sure all of you dread that question, right? What makes you different, right? And I think so. The answer is our initial. We use pricing as a big strategic weapon. So we said, see, the market is so big. Like we can always increase prices. We can build more features and do more packaging. So we were not afraid to enter the market with low pricing, and we used pricing as a competitive weapon. We also use freemium as a competitive weapon. You have to understand, if you look at most of our early day customers, they were all like nonprofits, educational institutions, people who can't go and do business with Salesforce or ServiceNow or Zendesk, right? So, and that's why I even say, like some people build software for the Fortune 500. We build software for the not so fortunate 5 million, right? So, so that is how we actually grew.
So that's interesting. You're saying in the early days, you were able to use pricing as a weapon to try and win some early customers. But how did you get the word out? Beyond pricing, how did customers become even aware that you existed as a solution?
So we just exhausted all the low-cost, free ways of marketing by literally, we will be on Twitter to see if somebody's unhappy about Zendesk, our support guy will go and say, hey, I'll invite you to try Freshdesk, right? So we were like hustling like a startup. So we used all the social channels, whether it's Quora, LinkedIn, Reddit, Twitter, everything. Whenever people are evaluating or talking about competition or searching for help desk, we would be in the conversation. We inserted ourselves into the conversation and try to be genuinely helpful, but invite them to try the product. Because our belief was, we have a good product at a good price point. If customers experience it, they will buy it. And that's how we got it. So we were not into consultative selling at all. In fact, till May 2012, I did not hire a single salesperson.
Everyone's talking about PLG and PLG-led growth. G, in your opinion, are there many other GTM strategies beyond PLG that are equally important?
If there was a way for Freshworks to get to $1 billion in 4 or 5 years with only the inbound strategy, I would not have started the outbound experiment at all. But that is the problem with product-led growth. If you look at any product-led growth company, and there's a great article on TechCrunch where somebody wrote recently on the hamburger model of sales. The patty is your product. So the bottom bun is the product-led growth. The top bun is the sales-led expansion, right? So if you look at any product-led growth company, whether it's Atlassian or Zoom or Stripe, so you have to see that at some point, they use product-led growth for acquisition, but then they actually layer on sales-led growth to build lasting customer relationships. Think about Asana, Trello, all these products we have all used. And we suddenly also stop using them because we don't have a relationship with the company, right? So that is a double-edged sword. So and it's not different for Freshworks, right? When people can come in online, super easy product, put their credit card, don't have to talk to anybody, you can start using it. Tomorrow they can cancel the credit card. There's a nuclear button, they cancel and they go. So churn is a killer in product-led growth in the SMB space specifically, or if your product is not mission critical.
You make a really important point, Girish. I guess while PLG is super important and useful for the SMB segment in particular, you've got to watch out for churn that can really creep up on you. Now, Freshworks has always been rooted in Chennai, in Madras, and you've been so proud about building Freshworks from Madras. But there came a point a couple of years back where you decided to pack up your bags and move to the US for the good of the company. I'm sure that was an emotional decision for you and for the company. Talk a little bit about it and explain to a young founder why sometimes founders need to put themselves in their out of their comfort zone in order to make progress as a company and as a founder.
Like Accel invested us in 2011, and in 2012 there were conversations about will I move to the US? I said no. I have to be in India and build the company. Somewhere around 2016, there was a conversation that, hey, will Girish move to the US? The company is becoming big. I said no. I have to build it from India. I want to. I was stubborn. And I think everybody had given up, saying this guy, you cannot move him from Chennai. So, and then I surprised everybody by telling them in 2019 that I'm going to move to US. So one of the concepts that I have actually built is like it's a game, like it's a sport, right? What's your game? What's your level? Is the question that I asked, right? So at every point of time in life, I want to ask myself, okay, when I started in 2000, like I was a trainer, and then I did training very well. I picked up articulation. I was able to go and meet customers. I learned customer problems. I was able to change my game to be a product manager. I got the opportunity. So while my earlier game that I was good at was training, but I was able to learn and practice product management. And between 2002 to 2010, I was a very successful product manager. In 2010, when I started Freshworks, I knew how to play the product manager game, but I did not know how to play the CEO game. I did not know how to play the VC funding, raising funding, etc. But I was learning. So it was in my mind, like moving on from like one game to another, and then how do you increase your level, right? So in that sense, for me, the next level for my game was to really look at other world-class companies and see, hey, can we actually take Freshworks from 100 million to a billion in, say, 3, 4, 5 years? And if others have done it, like, what does it mean? And that is what I wanted. So the number one reason that I wanted to do it was for me, very selfishly. I wanted to learn. I wanted to step up my game and go. The second reason was, I said, for you, which is the employee, right? So I saw an opportunity that if I can go and run hard and win this as an Indian athlete running in the Olympics, I can create tremendous wealth for our employees, right? So, and imagine, I also told that what happens when instead of 2,500 crores, if employees have 25,000 crores, right? The third is like I said for India, right? So if we show that it is possible to create such a company from India, right? And this is already happening. So you will turn the world's attention towards global SaaS startups from India. So you will create investor interest, which is already happening. You can see more and more companies coming in. And that is something that India needs it, because IT services is on the growth has slowed down. We need more job creation for Indians. And so that is for the country, right? And so I think that was my answer.
Gee, this notion of giving back to the community, giving back to the country, it's something that's close to my heart as well. And that's why we've gotten along so well. And I just think that anyone who succeeds commercially here in India has a responsibility almost to also help the communities through which they've thrived and got that success from. Share a little bit about what you've done in the community around Chennai and how Freshworks' success has been reflected in many others also winning along with you.
When you become rich, right, it's not about increasing the standard of living, it's about increasing the standard of giving, right? So that's what we all want to do. So we want all founders to grow into super rich founders, but increase your standard of giving, because the purpose of money is to serve society. Of course, we need to keep as much as we want for family and stuff. I think I'm a fundamental believer in all of these. One of the biggest learnings that I've also had is like money doesn't really change a person. It only amplifies who you really are. So I believe that success is in the big things and happiness is in the small things, right? See, so if I play a game of tennis or have a beer with a friend, I think that's enough to be happy, right? You don't need a lot of money to be happy. So I think then what happens then beyond that, that's what you want to optimize your life for. So I would encourage all of you to optimize life for happiness and find happiness every day. So with all of this in context, that means when you have money, what do you do? Like you pick a cause. Like for me, I am a football fan, and I always wanted to say, hey, we are all foot fans of Man U and Chelsea, but we don't see India anywhere. India with 1 billion people, we are not celebrating our sports people, right? Education is the enemy of sport in India. Like we applaud our children for scoring well in math and science, but if a kid plays sport well, we actually discourage them from playing because parents as well-wishers think, hey, there's no career opportunity here. So somebody has to do something. Somebody has to try. If you want a kid to be an artist, somebody has to buy paper and crayons, right? That's what is my responsibility here. So we are building like a world-class soccer academy for young children, under 13, under 15 kids, in Chennai called FC. So my only thing was it has to be called FC Madras. It's like giving back to the city. So we will hopefully see. It will take 7 years, 10 years for these kids to grow up and probably blossom into football player. And it's a very hard journey, but that's what a startup founder's journey is again also, right? Like who thought you can build a global software from Kirkatlai in Chennai and win, right? So let's try. The worst thing we will lose is money. But if we are able to produce some champions, and you'll inspire a whole generation. And all you need is that one or two champions.
Goosebumps, Girish, goosebumps. It's just amazing to see what you've done for Chennai and for the country. Godspeed, man. I want to close now by pointing out that you are one of the few and the first founder CEOs from India who built a company from India and taken it public on the US markets. You've inspired an entire generation of founders. You've taught all of us to think big and audaciously and go for gold. So thank you for that. But I want to get into your mindset. What's going through your head right now as you think of everything that you've achieved and what's left to achieve?
I think, Mohit, your question is, okay, how do I feel? What's going on in my mind? I think I can summarize it in one sentence. I feel like an Indian athlete has got a chance to run in the Olympics. Okay, that's it. So, you know the pressure, you know the competition, you know how world-class everybody else is. You want to try and run to the best of your ability. It's like you can think of all the sports movies that you like, whether it's Dangal or Chak De or whatever. So it's like wanting to go there and play to your heart out, and whatever happens, it's a win, right? So I come from a very normal middle-class family background. My father is the Bank of India retired officer, he's no more. And the way I look at life today is, okay, tomorrow, whatever happens, there is going to be a small, like, let's say there is a newspaper article in Tamil and my uncles and aunts are going to read it. Whether it's a 1 billion IPO or a 10 billion IPO or a 5 billion IPO, nothing matters to them. They feel happy that, okay, Girish has done something and they will feel happy. For me, I'll feel happy. So I think that's where I like to take it simple. I'm not stressed too much. I would like to go and play to my heart and do the best of my ability, see what happens and go with that. So that's how I feel. But truly, that is the sentiment. So it's like an Indian athlete wanting to run in the Olympics. So we are at the tracks. So let's see what happens.
Chak De, Girish, Chak De. Get out there, change the world. Godspeed, man.
Thank you, and all the best for all the startups. So go big.
What an inspiring story. That was Girish Mathrubootham, co-founder and CEO of Freshworks, in conversation with Sequoia India Managing Director Mohit Bhatnagar. For more interesting startup stories, visit our website sequoiacap.com or follow us on Spotify. I'm Dewi Fabry, and you've been listening to Moonshot.